We continue the fundamental topics of Python coding. Just like everything else we've learned so far, we will use them heavily in our project. Let's first create a new Python file in the same directory. For this, we go here to the Python project, right-click, go to New, and click Python file. Let's name it Functions and Data Structures, because that's what the topic is going to be. So you see here a new Python file appeared. This main is the one that was created by default. So we don't care about that. And this is the one that we created, and this is also the one that we just created. Here is the code I prepared for you. Let's start by explaining what these things here are. This is a Python function. Here I defined the function called explain for loop. I will use the code inside its body to explain for loop to you. Its syntax looks a lot like the if statement syntax that we have learned, and its scope also works the same way. So these all belong to this function right here, and its scope ends here as soon as we define something else or declare something else or basically do anything else on the same vertical line as we defined this function. For example, we could print x, or this would end the scope right, this function's scope right here, or we could say x equals 10, declaring a variable. Anything would end the scope here. Inside a function, we usually have a piece of code that is written for carrying out a specific task. We can easily reuse the code by calling a function. So you see, I'm calling the functions that are defined above right here. So we're calling explain for loop here, explain while loop here, and this basically makes the code inside the function run when we when we run this file. If we do not call a function anywhere, even though we have written them here and defined them here, they will never run. Now I will explain for loop to you. So I don't want the other functions to run for now, so I'll easily comment them out. We can also hide the code inside a function. This is done the following way. You see the little minus sign right here? I can click it and suddenly it's hidden. This is what I did to the other functions to make it better readable for you for now, and later we will reveal what's inside them. But for now, we will just concentrate on explain for loop, and we can either click the plus sign here to make the code inside it appear again, or I can click right here on these three dots. So here we see this function, the others are still hidden. So functions make our code much more manageable and readable. Using functions is absolutely crucial in data analysis as your code gets larger and larger. Now imagine that we want to print the numbers from 0 to 20, integer numbers. How would we do that? Well, Python provides us for loop for such tasks. So here we write for I in range 0 to 20. Now what does this mean? This means that I is the variable that will take the values, integer values, from 0 to 20. Now this thing right here is basically creating a sequence of numbers from 0 to 20, and we will see the result here. So let me comment out the rest of the code for now. Notice that I am only commenting out the code inside the function, because that will be the only code executed by our Python file here, because we're only calling it. So let's run and see what's going to happen. You see, we printed out the numbers starting from the 0 and increasing to 19. So it didn't include 20 because this range here only creates, it does not include the number right here. So what happened was I first got the value of 0 and we printed it. And then this code got executed inside the body of this for loop. So after this code was executed, I increased by 1. I mean, it got the next value from this sequence of numbers, which was 1, and we printed it again because this body of the for loop gets executed again and again until we exhaust all of the numbers that are here. Now, we could define some other numbers. Let's say we wanted to create numbers from 4 to, I don't know, 15. Let's execute it now. So here it started with 4 and ended with 14, again, excluding the number right here. You can play around and try other numbers. But now let's try to use for loop for a practical example. I'll uncomment this and comment this one out. Now let's see. We want to calculate the average of car prices, but now we're going to use for loop instead of using a function like we did before from statistics. So how do we do that? Here I have declared a list which has some car prices inside it, and we see that it's a lot of numbers. So we want our code to somehow be automated to calculate the average instead of us calculating them by hand. So how do we do that? We first declare the variable called sum car prices. Right now we are just giving it the value of 0. We're assigning 0 to it, but in the end it will equal the sum of all of the elements in here. So now we write for I in car prices. This means that I will iterate over the elements in here, over each element in here. So I will first get the value of 20,000, then it will get the value of 30,000, and so on. And on each value, as I get each value here, this body of the for loop will get executed. So this basically is updating the value of sum. So initially sum equals 0, but on the first run of this for loop, I will get the value of 20,000. So sum will get assigned. This is the assigning sign here. This is not equals sign. We are assigning this value to this variable. So basically what are we doing here? We take the current value of some car prices and we add the value of I. So on the first run of this for loop, some car prices equals 0. So we will say that some car prices will be assigned the value of its current value, which is 0, plus the value of I, which is 20,000. So after the first one of the for loop, some car prices will have the value of 20,000. And on the next run, I will get the value of 30,000, and now sum will get the value of 50,000, and so on. So in the end, some car prices will have the value of all of the numbers summed up. But we wanted to calculate the average value. So in order to calculate average when we are given the sum, we need to divide the sum by the number of elements. Now we can calculate the number of elements in here, but we're too lazy to do that, so we'll let Python do that for us. So how do we do this? We declare the variable called average car price, and we assign the value of some car prices divided by length of car prices. So this len function here basically returns the number of elements inside the object. So in our case, the object is car prices, and the number of elements will be whatever the amount of car prices we have in here. Now for sanity check, let's compare our value to the value that statistics.mean would calculate. Like we previously learned about this, and let's see if they're both correct, they should yield the same numbers, right? And here is the Boolean expression. We are comparing this value to our calculated value, and if this is true, if this Boolean expression is true, then it will print it's true indeed. Otherwise, it will print incorrect. So let's run the code, and it says it's true indeed. But let's say that we want to know what the average car price actually is. So let's print average car price. Print again. So this is the average car price that we got. It's 59,000, around 59,000. We will see more practical examples of using for loop in our project later.